Hey folks, your OS Reviews. You're watching our unboxing video first look at the HTC Desire 510. This is a mid-end Android handset that takes a lot of design cues from the more expensive flagship HTC One M8. You can see that from the rounded corners on the phone itself. What's interesting about this handset, it is a prepaid 4G LTE phone, and it can be found in the States on a lot of prepaid networks such as Boost Mobile. You can find it on Virgin Mobile, which is the version that we have here. You can also get it on Sprint, and they all retail for about $100 or less, so very inexpensive costs. Otherwise, we also have a 1.2 GHz quad-core Snapdragon 400 processor, which is pretty impressive for the price, and more importantly, this is a 64-bit processor. It's actually HTC's first 64-bit phone, and the important thing here is that as we see more updates along the line, perhaps to Android 5.0 Lollipop and more graphically intensive games, with that extra 64 bits of processing power, we have a bit better performance in terms of benchmarks, which is good, but at the moment it's not doing too much. There's also Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS. Again, it's currently running Android 4.4 KitKat out of the box, and as you can see here, it's 3G, 4G advanced LTE, and at the same time, what's interesting is LTE requires a SIM card, so even though this is a CDMA phone, there's going to be a micro SIM card slot behind the back cover. The phone's display measures 4.7 inches diagonally. It's multi-touch enabled, so it's capacitive. And there's also a 5.0 megapixel fixed focus camera, so it's not autofocus. There's also a front-facing 1.3 megapixel camera. Although it looks like the HTC One M8, it doesn't have the stereo speakers on the front. It's just a microphone down below here, so that's one differentiating factor. Otherwise, the packaging itself is pretty nicely presented, at least for the Virgin Mobile variant. There's some information about the product inside. You can see that from the flap. And on the back, there's more information about the product specifically. There is no NFC support, so you don't have near-field communication or wireless charging, but it's a pretty low-end device again, so you do get quite a lot for your money. Again, you can pick a plan if you're going with one of these prepaid networks, so you're not tied down to a monthly or a year-based, 2 years-based contract. Instead, you get to choose from any plan that you want to use, and then you can cancel that plan anytime you want. So it's not exactly unlocked, but you can get it unlocked quite easily, but at the same time, you're not tied down to a contract. So inside the packaging here, we have access to the device presented right on top. This particular HTC Desire 510 comes in 3 different color variants. This is the black version. There's also a white and also a navy blue version, and all of them are quite attractive in terms of design, in my opinion. So we can open up the packaging on the side here. We have the phone laying right on top. We'll take a look at that in a moment. Down below here, there's some security tab information. Let's get started. This is from Virgin Mobile. Some packaging information, including users' manuals, is going to be in here. And indeed, we have access to a fully color-based user manual, which is pretty nice, including all the features, important information for the HTC Desire 510 printed by HTC. This is monochrome black and white. And we also have a recyclable bag from the manufacturer, so you can send back your used cell phones and be more eco-friendly if you want to go ahead and do that. Down below here, we have access to the battery. Now, the battery on here is actually, it looks fairly large, so it should be a pretty impressive one. If we try and look closely, this is a 2,100 milliamp hour battery, so it's a fairly decent battery. It should last us through a day, more or less of performance, which is going to be good. It's a pretty standard HTC one. Also have access to the charger, which is again a fairly standard HTC model. We have just the charger adapter on one side, and we have a USB tip on the other side that we plug into the wall here in the States. And finally, we also have a micro USB cable. It's a very traditional one. Simply plug it into the phone to get it synced up with your computer or to start charging it. So we're just going to take a look at the phone now. Now, upon first impressions, the device actually feels pretty nicely built in the hands. It's a plastic constructed device, so it has soft touch materials on the back and on the front, so it doesn't feel like a very cheap device, which is certainly good. There aren't any metal components to it, but then again, most Samsung or LG phones are also not based off of metal, so it's fairly decent in terms of construction quality for the money. Seems like we simply peel this back, and we can reveal the back cover. It's pretty tightly put on here. And we have underneath here, as you can see, access to the SIM card slot, the micro SIM card slot, and that's for LTE data, and also you have a micro SD card. It can support up to 128 gigabytes of additional storage, which is going to be important because you only, again, get about 4 gigabytes of storage in the box. The phone has about 1 gigabyte of RAM, again, 4 gigabytes of flash storage, and again, that 1.2 gigahertz quad-core Snapdragon 400 processor. So we're going to put this in here and see if there is any charge from the device directly. You can see the loudspeaker is on the bottom and on the back. More importantly, it's not on the front. And there's also some more information about the device sealed on here, including the plan, your device's, the phone's ID number, and so on and so forth, which can be pretty easily peeled off. It's a simple sticker. And we have the HTC logo underneath. So again, this is a pretty soft touch matte finish, which is good because it's going to resist too much fingerprints or dust from collecting on it. So it feels like a pretty slick device in the hand. It's not going to slide around on desk surfaces, which is always good. And the camera itself is also flush with the surface, and there is no LED flash or self-portrait mirror. The right-hand side device features a quick volume rocker that's very tactile, easy to press. The top features a 3.5mm headphone jack. Here's the power on and off switch. I like how the buttons are kind of tampered off, and they feel like they're pretty tactile and easy to press, and also they have a nice size to them, so users shouldn't have too much issues with pressing them. It's overall a pretty nice industrialized design, rounded corners here and there. And on the bottom, we have access to that aforementioned micro USB port for charging and syncing. And again, it has a pretty nice weighty feel to it, surprisingly, in the hand. The front lights up. We have the device's display, the microphone, and also the top is the earpiece, and also the proximity sensor, the light sensor, and also you have the 1.3 megapixel front-facing camera. And we're now powering the device up. So if we peel back the screen, we can see that the display itself is lit up. Now, the device's screen on this product is probably one of the weaker points of the Desire 510. It isn't even close to HD, it's not even 720p or even QHD for that matter. The resolution is going to be not as strong as some other phones, even with the same price range. That's definitely one area where HTC cut corners just to make the phone more affordable. But otherwise, you still have a pretty respectable device in terms of the design, build, and construction quality. Taking a quick look at how the phone stacks up in terms of size, my first impressions is that the phone is actually quite large for a 4.7-inch screened device. We have access over here to a Sprint ZTE Flash, which has a 4.5-inch screen. As you can see here, it's slightly smaller. It's a bit smaller, actually, in terms of size, just because the HTC version here has a pretty large chin on the bottom and on the top. We also have a Samsung Galaxy S3, which has a 4.8-inch screen. We can see how the tops and the bottoms, the chins, are quite a bit smaller. So when you're comparing the two devices, you get to see how, in essence, we find that the HTC Desire 510 is a bit larger in the hand. It's also a bit more of a slate form factor with a bit more flush surfaces and more flat edges. So overall, as far as size is considered, it's one of the larger devices with a 4.7-inch screen out there. There's also here the HTC Titan, which you can see how it's a bit more comparable, but it's still, the HTC Desire 510 is a bit taller and wider, even though the thickness are about the same. And essentially that's it. This has been a very quick first look. You can see that the accelerometer is working. As a 4G LTE device, you should get pretty fast speeds on Sprint's network. Virgin Mobile is using Sprint on this particular phone, and we'll have to see if the SIM card on the back can be, perhaps unlocked for use on some other network if you are roaming outside of the US. That'll be exciting to see. So overall, it's a pretty exciting device. I think it's well built, it has pretty good construction quality and nice design going on there, and it feels like a more inexpensive version of one of HTC's more recent offerings, and that's always good. And I think that customers of Verizon should be, customers of Virgin Mobile should be excited for this product because it offers a nice choice for the money. So a pretty good value overall. We'll take a closer look at our full review, so keep posted, and we'll post that soon in the coming days on our website. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. This has been an unboxing first look at the Virgin Mobile HTC Desire 510.